Like, you don't have to think. You just do what you're told.
I mean, yeah, and for some people that works, and I'm not dissing that.
Kind of, just a little bit.
There you go. I'm dissing it completely. No offense. No offense. I'll never get sponsored by Contiki.
So we shot a wedding the other week. I got you in as a last-minute assistant to help me out. It was from my understanding, it was your first wedding. It was like my ninth now. I've shot 9 weddings, but I've gone back and looking through the footage. It was a little humbling to me, and I have to admit as well that I think your shots were the better shots. I'm a professional videographer now. This is what I do to make my money somehow. But looking back through my shots, I think your shots were actually better than mine. And I want to know, like, where on earth does that come from? I've looked through your Instagram grid. It's very, very pretty. It's a very beautiful Instagram grid. I think mainly shot on your phone and just like as you've been traveling around. But how have you developed your clear eye for photography? How?
That's interesting because I don't think I've ever consciously done it. Like, truthfully. I don't know. I mean, maybe I grew up with my dad as a photographer, and, he would have me sometimes in the black room, the dark room, sorry, helping him develop his shots. And he was really talented, I guess, as well. So maybe it's just something I have subconsciously picked up in my life. I don't know if it's something that I've never really tried to teach myself anything. Like, truthfully, the only technical knowledge I have is from what you taught me that day at the wedding. That was it. I had no technical knowledge prior to that. None. It was just like, I see it, I take a photo of it, I edit it a little bit, I crop it, like I make it look symmetrical. Like, I don't know, just it's intuitive.
Yeah, you just mentioned one thing at least, symmetry. Yeah. You're looking for symmetry. You said, largely, obviously it's not largely conscious. You haven't developed the classical language, something that I'm obviously trying to develop myself. But you just said one thing. You said symmetry. That's one of those rules. I guess to you that just feels intuitive. You see some of your shots as well, you're at depth. You take shots with a foreground and a center ground and a background. Like you said, you don't have the wording for it, and it feels like it's unconscious, but you, as far as I can see from the shots that you take, you have clearly developed technical knowledge over time. You just might not have the language to it. But I think you clearly have a very sophisticated recognition of beauty and of what looks good. I want to investigate further. I'm going to ask you again.
Thank you. It's flattering. Ask me again what?
Ask you again, where does that come from? Why do you have such a fine eye for detail, or has that developed over time? It must have in some sense.
I mean, maybe it has developed over time. I've seen not a large part of the world, but I've seen, a large part of Europe. I guess I've been to, I've been to every continent apart from Africa and Antarctica. And you know what? I may have only been to one country in Asia, but I'm going to take that as a continent. I had a layover for 16 hours.
Only one in Asia, eh?
No, actually 2. That's a lie. 2. But I had a 16-hour layover in Japan, or 18-hour layover, and I slept overnight, so I'm counting that as I've been to Japan. But I got lost on public transport for 3 hours, which was the amount of time I had to exploring that city. So it's counted, but it's not.
You got lost in public transport.
Yeah, in Tokyo.
So Japan were most famous for their public transport.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought. Here I am, way too confident, because I'd obviously done overseas travel before at this point, and I had navigated public transport quite well, I thought, up until that point. But yeah, no, look, it probably wasn't Japan. It was probably me and my confidence, and I kind of said to my friend, look, I'm really good with maps. I'll just quickly have a look while we've got Wi-Fi at the airport, see where we've got to go, roughly this way. Now, this happened before one time when I was in LA and we ended up in Compton. that. So it's repetitive.
Damn.
Yeah. But yeah, basically I just said, look, I've got this. And we walked out of the airport, no Wi-Fi, just pretty much me and my friend, and no, we did not got that. Well, no, I did not got no, I did not get it. And literally we actually nearly missed getting to our hostel. And I'm so thankful there was this really sweet Japanese younger girl. She knew very little English, and we showed her where we needed to go, and we had 10 minutes before our hostel closed. And so she led us down these back streets, and yeah, anyway.
Yeah, but
Totally derailed.
But at the same time, you have all of these stories from around the world. I feel like,
Yeah.
how many countries did you say?
I think it's like 28 or 29, somewhere around there. I would like to say 30, but that would be a lie.
Almost 30.
It's almost 30.
Approximately
so I'll
30,
take
yeah.
almost 30, but yeah.
Yeah, just say 30. We'll round up 30. Okay.
Well, 'cause I had a goal of 30 before 30, and it just didn't happen. Thank you.
Just call it 50. So you've been, no.
I could do 50 before 50, actually.
But you've been to a lot of different countries. It's like, I feel, a large part of what people are doing, just, I've only been to a few countries, but you're trying to stretch your perception. You're trying to see new things. You're trying to, get a larger insight of the world. Do you think that your travel and being through Europe and seeing so much of the different arts of the world and like seeing up front all of this, the architecture and different ways that people express themselves, do you think that has led to, again, maybe more of an artistic eye?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously when you're exposed to culture, or when you're a witness of culture mostly, you take the backseat a little bit and you're just observing, how people live, like even the time that they wake up, the structure of their day is far more different. And when you're kind of in that rhythm of living how they are, like say if you're in Italy and, you can't really, if you're in a small town and they have a siesta like in the afternoon, you're kind of siestaing with them because you've got not much on. And so I think, when you kind of become in tune with their culture, you see it far more. And I think that, going to museums, like I used to go to a lot of museums in Europe. I actually tried to make it just a thing that I did was to go to some kind of art museum, or if there was like a local art thing, I would go and have a look or go to the markets and stuff like that. And so I think maybe, that's where a lot of that's the start of where the perception of art for me came from. Or even just like small things like landscapes as well. Like, if you go to Bavaria in Germany, like you're literally in a fairy tale. Like you are in a fairy tale. You're in like, there's these pine forests and these like castles everywhere. And like, I remember this one time I went to this castle, and I'm not going to say it because I will butcher it, but it's where King Ludwig was. And
Was this in Germany?
It's a Sleeping Beauty castle. Yeah, it's a Sleeping Beauty castle in Bavaria. I'm not saying it. But yeah, I just genuinely thought that was going to be a castle because that's all you see in these photos. But we ended up going there, and there were actually two castles, and it was a village on this massive big lake. And I actually have a video of it on my Instagram. That was actually where I started doing reels. I'm not going to lie. Like I was doing reels on Instagram before reels were a thing, and you can go back 8 years ago and I was doing it. And yeah, like I was so just like taken back by the beauty of this place because, there were like ducks in the pond, and like there was a castle over here and a castle over there, and like this little tiny village that, had so much history in it. Obviously it was modernized with tourism now, but like, seeing things like that, or kind of having your expectations stretched. Yeah, having your expectations stretched and being able to experience that too. Like my friend and I, we didn't expect to spend the day there. We thought we were just going to go see the castle and leave, but we ended up spending the day in the village, and we decided to go have lunch. We got a bottle of rosé, a bit drunk, could see that you go on these paddle boats. And so we're like, let's go on one of those. And so we kind of walked around the lake and got on a paddle boat, and her and I, drunk as, like paddled in the middle of this lake and just kind of sat there and took it all in. And it was beautiful. Like the mountains, you just had like a totally different perception from being in that lake to where we were sitting at lunchtime. Like, I think maybe, being exposed to that is probably where something that started.
Yeah, I haven't been to Europe, but they say, Europe so pretty expensive, I believe, compared to what it used to be to travel around Europe. But people will still do it. People still pilgrimage to Europe. And I've heard one of the gravities of it, or the things that are pulling people in, is the sophisticated beauty, is the sophisticated architecture, is just being able to be confronted with of true art and true beauty. It's something that I really feel that we lack here in Australia. Here in Burnie, Tasmania, I mean, we barely even have a church to speak of. You go to Launceston, and I'm still blown away even by the cathedrals in Launceston, just the beauty. It's like, and I'm sure that doesn't even begin to compare to what some of the things that you see throughout Europe. But do you think it is important? How important is it, or is it even important at all that we are surrounded by art and by beauty? And how does that add to a person's life? How did it add to your life? How could it add to all of our lives, if at all?
Yeah, I think I think you have to be someone that is so willing to take it in. I feel like, there are so many people that could go to Europe and they go over there and they do like a Contiki tour, like not, talking shit on Contiki, but like go and like do a Contiki tour.
You've never done a Contiki tour?
Yeah. No, I made my own Contiki tours.
You're talking a little bit of shit on Contiki tours.
Yeah, look, I mean, like they're good for some, but not for me. Nah.
What's wrong with Contiki tours? Just a quick sidetrack.
I mean, it's an organized itinerary. Do you know what I mean? And
what's wrong with that?
Like everything. It's just, I don't know. There's obviously adventure in that. You meet good people and, you kind of do that without Contiki. But I kind of just feel like it's just a shallow way to see Europe. Like you're here for 8 hours? Here's your Eiffel Tower. Have a croissant of what? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, but, you go to Italy and like, here's a bowl of pasta. Here's some pizza. Bye. Like, it's like surface level culture that you see. And, so many people are like, oh my God, like I've been in Europe. Oh, like where'd you go? I just did like a 21-day Contiki. And I'm like, I spent 21 days in a, like.
You don't have to think, you just do what you're told.
I mean, yeah. And, for some people that works. And I'm not dissing that.
Kind of, just a little bit.
Okay, I'm dissing it completely. No offense. No offense. I'll never get sponsored by Contiki. But it is a good way. I think it's a good introduction to somebody. Like, I think Contiki is really good for somebody that may be an anxious traveler or might be going on their own. And, it's brilliant for that. But I think that if you're like a serial Contiki person, that's...
There's something you're missing out on,
I think so, yeah. Like, I really do. And, there's a large element of traveling as meeting people and kind of, hitching on to some group for, like a couple of days or a couple of weeks and traveling with them and then splitting ways. Like, that is a large part of traveling. So that aspect is there. But I really do believe that you do miss a lot of culture and you miss, the cathedrals. Like, you miss the smaller parts to it because you are on like a routine itinerary. Like, you have to be up at 8. We're out of the hotel by 9. Like, we're going to be on the bus traveling for 2 hours. Like, it's just bang, bang, bang. You're going to get 2 hours of free time this afternoon, kind of thing. And I feel like in the free time when you're, wandering around a city a lot of the times where I would see things, it would be me on my own with my headphones in, going for a walk before people were awake. Like, and I kind of feel like if you might do that on a Contiki, sure. But I feel like, when you have an itinerary, your mind is consumed by following that. Whereas for me, I very much like to freestyle and be immersed more so in the culture. Like, my friend and I were in Prague, and it was the first time we were in Prague. Beautiful city, one of my favorites. And we were in the hostel and we were waiting to check in because we were way earlier than what we should have been. Like, our bus got in at 5 a.m. and we couldn't check in till like 10. So we were sitting there waiting, and while we were doing that, we were kind of looking on the wall of all the things that you can do. And there was this tiny, tiny little like pamphlet or just little notice on the board, and it was called Prague Bohemian Alternative Bar Tours or something like that. And I saw it and I'm like, oh my gosh, we should like give this a go. And so my friend and I, we signed up to do it. And it was for the following night. And the first night we were at the hostel, we met a group of people. We went out and did like a very generic bar tour. And that was fun, don't get me wrong. And then the next day we had this alternative bohemian bar tour. And my friend fell sick and I was going to do it on my own. But some of the people that we'd met the night before were like, we'll come with you. And so we ended up going on this really cool underground tour of Prague. And, you know, there was so much art in that for me. Like we went to this this cafe smoking a shisha, and then all of a sudden a door opens and there's a speakeasy. And then he's like, do you want to go to Narnia? We're like, what are you talking about? And we go around this little corner and there's this cupboard and we open it up and you walk into this room like, and then from there we went and like randomly we're just eating like baked brie and playing darts, drinking beer like at this little dart place. And then we went to this like residential building and this person had turned their apartment into this really cool bar and like you got to see like the residents and the locals there. And I think that kind of level of creativity for me is something that I felt very drawn to. And, you know, I think in a lot of ways that tour, that bar tour was like the catalyst of how I chose to travel, because I'd only been in Europe maybe for 3 weeks at that point, the first time when I had witnessed that. And from there, I think I was always very dedicated to seeing the more alternative side, a different side to tourism. And I think that is where, for me, I think that is where you are more open to that. Because if you kind of stick to the generic, you're not necessarily, you're just kind of like ticking things off. I saw the Eiffel Tower, I seen the Leaning Towers of Pisa, I saw the Colosseum, like ticking it off. Whereas kind of on the other hand, you're kind of just like cruising through and, oh, there's the moon. Oh, cool. Like, cool. You kind of, it's more of a flow. I feel like, really.
I feel like when you've been to places that have these kind of qualities and have, you know, special events, and they have different ways of doing things, and they have you know, systems that they've developed, you know, like unique, you know, international systems. You have the ability to bring some of that knowledge back. I mean, like even just spending some years living in Melbourne for myself, I feel like you learn some things, you get some knowledge that's not as present here in Tasmania. You bring back and you feel like you've got some ideas of some things that aren't really happening. I really like, you know,
you're expanding.
The bars over there are a little bit more advanced. They have like this cool kind of craft beer atmosphere. And, you know, someone realizes that, they're over in Melbourne and they come back here and they put communion in town, you know. I feel like that doesn't come out of thin air. They saw that kind of thing happening
it's inspired.
somewhere else.
They say that art is inspired by something. You know, it's always inspired. And I, you know, the first time I ever heard that saying art is inspired, it actually made me mad when I heard that.
Even more than inspired, it's emulated.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, the first time I ever heard that, it made me, I was mad to hear that, because I always kind of feel like, you know, art, like
it's unique. It's
because like creativity, you know what I mean? So like, well, when you think of what creating is, it's like you're creating something
just for me.
Exactly. So it's hard for me to like kind of separate. Sometimes I feel like you should separate art and creativity a little bit, because if art is informed, and then creativity is
interesting. Yeah, there's this really cool little book that's recommended pretty. Probably like synonymously all over, or different types of arts communities, I would only imagine. But at least in the film community, there's this book that I've seen come up a lot of times. It's a book called Still Like an Artist. Mm-hmm. This is this tiny little book that kind of has all of these just, you know, one sentences and a couple of sentences per page, but all of this really thought-provoking art that goes throughout it. But it's like essentially telling you to find the best artists, to find the artwork that inspires you the most, to copy it. It's showing how some of the great artists that we know of, you know, from Da Vinci to Picasso to, you know, like some great writers, you know, they're all inspired, they're all influenced, they're all emulating, you know, their own mixture, their own interpretation of the great artists before. I feel like oftentimes this is not something that I do enough. I kind of get caught in my own creative loop at times, and I feel it's actually been the times where I've actually studied, whether it's actually online lessons or whether it's actually studying, taking notes of people that are better better than me, that's actually when I see the most tangible gains. And I recognize over time as I'm doing my work, as I'm editing, I'm getting faster and I'm learning the color grade. I didn't come up with that myself. I found that from somebody else. The beautiful thing is that your little 1% interpretations and the different ways you do things, that's still like they really stick out. But I feel like for us to learn and actually to get high level, we have to study the high level people before us. But yeah, and maybe, you know, whether you know it or not, that's a lot what you're doing when you're traveling to these iconic, beautiful places all throughout the world. They're not iconic by chance. Maybe some of the landscapes are, but any of the architecture, that's not by chance. You're just observing the great artists before you.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever it is, it led to some good shots at Sean and Holly's wedding that we shot the other week. That was that was fun. What did you think of that? I'm not sure I've really even asked you how you went with that and what you thought, whether you had fun.
I actually loved it. Truthfully, I was so nervous to start off with because you were giving me like all this technical language.
I said no expectations.
I know, right? And I was just like, fuck. Like you just literally, because sometimes for me, like because I
could be a bit much sometimes.
No, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. It was me because, you know, like something that I do so naturally, obviously, just like take a picture, whatever. And then you're like adding the technical language. I'm like, I need to make sure that what I'm doing is like actually like coinciding with his technical words. So I was always checking like the exposure and making sure that I was within the numbers that you told me to do. But after a little while, actually, I eased it. I'm like, oh, this was so simple. Like I kind of, you know, I worked myself up a little bit on that. But after I got through that, I actually had so much fun. Like just kind of, you know, going and just being immersed again, like being immersed in it, witnessing what is happening, like being a wallflower, like being someone that's just on the outsider watching all the emotions and like just observing, I guess.
It's comfortable, right? It feels like, I'm here. Yeah, I'm meant to be here. I have a job. There's like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, you know, too, like when you've got like a camera in people's face and like when you're doing that too, like you kind of feel, again, like you are meant to be there. Like, for example, I have been the person that, you know, will be in a public space, whatever, and I see something cute or a couple being cute and I take a photo of them and I go and say, do you want this? Like, and so I think for me, being able to like, it's almost like I had permission to be there and to capture. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I had permission to be there and I had permission to like capture the emotion of people and capture like real time things. And in order like for you to have something really good to work with and for the couple to have as like a memory, I think, you know, when that was something that kept unraveling the more that I worked that day, was kind of realizing how special capturing moments are. And I feel like the more that I realized how special that was, the more I wanted to capture. It was like this, I don't know, it was cool. I really liked it. And I think, you know, like towards the end of the night when I finished and I grabbed the camera and I kept going, like.
and then you got all of the, probably the most natural and candid moments of the day whilst Holly and Sean were there dancing together.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're really tied in the film there at the end. Yeah,
because I remember the brief, like it was just capture them having fun.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that I had to keep remembering. Like when you have a brief, it's so good to work with, but when you have a brief, because you kind of embody that for the day, like fun, like who's having fun, and you're looking for, you know, the specific words that these people have given you, and you want to make sure that you're capturing that for them.
I tried to do that as well. Like it was cool because I like throwing out all of this information at you, but I was making sure like, hey, I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you. I'm pretty sure I'm just doing this for me right now. It was like a good little practice. Like, yes, I can actually speak these words that I've learned. Instead of, you know, I've now, unfortunately, I just haven't found the chance yet to do a lot of collaborations across my short career.
And collaboration was it?
It was
interesting.
Don't call it a collab. No, But being able to speak to somebody and being able to just like, you know, work with somebody, and therefore being able to speak cameras, be able to speak exposure, be able to speak colors, and throwing a lot of information at you. Then I tried my best to simplify it back down. Here's all of this information, but here's all that really matters. Was it's like exposure, focus, and then I've seen your Instagram grid. I told you to come along because I just thought you were good at it. I'm just like, do your thing, and that was the best thing I could have said to you. And you did your thing. You got some really cool, unique shots from that shot through the family portrait of the crowd there. I really like that one. Even just like keeping it still there and waiting for someone to pick up one of the grapes.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful one. You got the girls.
That was luck. That was.
So you keep it. I think you're selling yourself short. I don't think it is luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Your preparation being, what looks good.
Yeah.
You've learned what looks good. The opportunity, waiting for someone to take the grape.
Yeah. You know what? You remind me. Like this conversation reminds me of a photo that I took last year when I was in Chile. And it's one of my favorite photos that I have. And I was on this ferry that would go from like mainland Chile to this little island called Chiloé. And I was just like, you would pretty much park your car on the ferry and you could sit there for half an hour if you wanted to, or you could go out and walk around. But I would always get out and just see if I could find a sea animal, like just go and see if I could find something like
a sea animal.
Yeah, like a sea animal, like a seal or like a dolphin. Like I've seen whales, like, like I would just go out there and see, like just wait for what I could see. And like I've got my phone ready too and I'm literally waiting for it. And I remember like it was just as the boat was kind of pulling in, and normally that's when everyone's going back into their cars, and I was just waiting because I saw these big, massive jellyfish. And I saw parts of them too. I'm like, there has to be like something here. And I'm like sitting there at the end of the boat and I could see something and it was coming closer and closer and closer. And I just had my phone. And I remember it was maybe, I had a video of it, it's not anymore, but it was like maybe a 15-second video. And I'm sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And I'm watching this jellyfish go and like come through my screen. And then I stopped the video and I took a photo, like immediately. And I remember seeing the photo and I was like, that photo was sick. Like it was a full shot of this jellyfish from the surface. Normally you would get that kind of shot if you were underwater with them, but I got it from the surface. And I remember after I took that, and like it's actually even on the caption on my Instagram, and it's like the realm that you sit in while you're waiting for that shot is like a realm that I relish in, like just sitting and waiting for it. Like, and so like the part with the grape, like just sitting there waiting for something to happen and then you got it. Like, because it's almost like your intuition's telling you like, there is something here. Like
you got purpose, you got focus in that moment.
Like,
you know,
you're here for a reason.
Yeah.
Like kind of thing. And like kind of sitting in that silence. And then when you get the shot, it's like, it's an unbeatable feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, I feel like that's now I hadn't classified myself as a photographer for the longest time. I just thought I make videos. I'm not a photographer. I'm a videographer. But like,
I was going to ask you actually. I was going to ask you a question. Says, but you can continue with yours.
But almost like I threw myself into this. Video has always been a part of my life. I kind of look back. I kind of got to an age where I'm going through existential crisis and wondering what I'm doing and wondering if I'm in the career that I want to be, and just kind of like not really feeling it, not really feeling like I'm being aligned, but then kind of just like looking back at my life retrospectively. I so happened to just see a Facebook story one day. It was of Tassie Visuals, and he needed an assistant here in Burnie Town. He was here with a Burnie Council gig shooting. I just I'd recently quit my building job, and I was a personal trainer. I was doing.
Oh, okay.
So there is some personal trainer roots that we don't have the actual. We do have the lab mic, so we're looking a little bit more professional than the road mic up in the shirt. But nonetheless, I went in and assisted him. Just said, I'll come and assist you. I'm only around the corner. I went in there and I started shooting this film. Like, I went and talked to him afterwards, and I asked what he was doing. I was asking about his gear and how much it cost, and if he was making money. And this guy was driving like a Land Rover and stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm certainly not driving a Land Rover, but I'm like, there's actually money to be made in this. And I look back, I'm like, I've kind of always had a camera in my hand. It was like one of the easily the coolest thing that my parents ever bought us when we were younger. When I was 12 years old, we bought a camcorder. We used to film each other on our BMX bikes, and I used to edit videos and stuff, and I've always kind of made little videos across time. So over time, I felt like I developed an understanding of how to piece videos together and how to piece little parts to create a story. But I know how to make videos, so I threw myself into the video world, into the video realm, almost in like a delusional sense of optimism. Oh yeah, I can make videos, I can make money off it. But then over time, I recognized how important the photography element was, how important the waiting for the right shot was, how important the exposure was, how important the coloring was. And it's like, over this time, I've been humbled to recognize, oh no, I am a photographer. If I want to be a good videographer, I need to think of myself as a photographer. A photographer is about exposure, about color, about framing, about composition. It's like learning that over time. There's so many parts to it, but if you want to be good at making videos, you have to be good at taking photos. You've got to understand the foundations of photography. And so this has been a latter part of my journey. It's like, finally actually classifying myself as a photographer. I am just a photographer. Yes, I make videos, but if I want to get good at making videos, I have to classify myself as a photographer. Yeah. So yeah, the intro, but that, like you were saying, the waiting part. There's so many parts to it, but yeah, this is all photography.
Yeah, definitely. What made you separate yourself from doing videos when you were younger to now?
Separate myself?
Yeah. What separated you from when you were taking photos when you were younger, and then you obviously stopped, and then you went back to now, on the last 2 years?
Yeah, you know what? I was always kind of making videos across time. Always kind of had a GoPro in my pocket. I've always I made a bunch of little video blogs over time that were just like, just kind of pointing a GoPro at myself and trying to make a story and go, I'm about to do this crazy little, goal. I'm about to pursue this crazy little goal of mine. I'm going to stick a camera on me and just like take shaky videos along the way and create a story and tell a story. Just something that I've always enjoyed. I've always enjoyed being in the editing room. It's one of those, you find those activities in your life where you kind of can just lock in and time stops and you're in that state of flow, what psychologists might call it or whatever. And yeah, I never really gave much credence to it, but as you get older, you're like, those places in your life actually matter. They're actually important places in your life. That part of your life is actually telling you a message. The fact that you can get to that state with that activity is saying something about your personality, is saying something about what you really are interested in. It's so hard when you're looking back, at school and you're asking, what do I want to be when I'm older? And it's like I don't know. I don't even know myself. I don't know what I want to do. But it's like you look backwards, unfortunately, say wisdom is wasted on the old. If you knew everything when you were young, you could just pick the career that makes sense and go from it from 16 years old. But it wasn't until 27 or, like 29, they're like, wow, I like making videos. I've always liked making videos and I can make money off this as well if I set my mind to it. It was more like the recognition of being in a more responsible, professional attitude, which I developed over time, which I slowly developed over time with a lot of effort. But I developed that, but then also recognize, I can embody this professional, responsibility-driven mindset, but I can actually also pursue something that I'm interested in. Something like that, and it's just, the aligned there. What is it? The Japanese ikigai is like finding those 4 components of your life that stick together. It's like what you're good at. What am I good at? Maybe telling stories. I'm not bad at it anyway. What the world needs? Well, the world seems to want content. The world needs content. And Tasmania definitely still, although there are some talented videographers around, Tassie still needs good content and more some of the other factors. What you can be paid for. That's one of the factors in the Japanese ikigai. And what else is there? So what you're good at, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you love. What do I love? I can say storytelling as well, But I think I just love making my own shit. I love making my own shit. I love being able to express myself authentically. That's what I love, you know? Yeah. Something like that. You put those things, 4 things together, and I say that's the Japanese ikigai. There's 4 things that is like puts you in that realm of alignment. You know, and I feel more in that realm of alignment, although not perfect, more in that realm of alignment right now than I ever have. You know, I feel more confident than I ever have. I can rock up to a place, to a wedding, to a job, and I know what I'm doing. I'm not insecure. I'll get in there, I'll throw my camera around like I did, or I'll do laps, I'll run around the car yard with my gimbal with everybody watching me. I don't care. I'm aligned, you know? Yeah. When you're really aligned with what you want to do,
You don't really care.
I heard someone say that once, you won't be insecure. You don't care. You're just completely confident.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, that's the beauty of authenticity. When you are embodying yourself, there's nothing to be insecure about. Yeah.
I say that, like, if you have a look over your social media for the last however many years, you have created videos where you were in the fight world. And I think, I was just thinking before, like, how did the fight world kind of train you to be a better videographer?
Well, we have to back up a little bit. But, you know, growing up in a kind of to put it lightly, I won't bother digging into it too much, but in a very unstructured way, a certain, a young, rebellious kind of culture that I grew up in, I just, didn't respect the adult world. I didn't respect society in a lot of senses. I was just part of a young bunch of troublemakers, and I didn't respect society. I didn't respect the adult world. But there was one type of adult that all of my friends respected, and therefore, by default, I respected as well. And that was a tough guy, respected the tough guys, respected the fighters, and I feel like, that goes for a lot of rebellious young kids. They might not respect any other type of adult, but they will still respect the tough guy, And so all my friends, they started doing martial arts, and, I kind of watched from the outside, kind of, afraid. I never felt like I was a talented fighter or anything compared to them, but I just started doing combat sports as well, just to be accepted, and that led to amateur boxing and a bunch of fights. And what that did give me in a otherwise kind of something that was otherwise kind of absent in my life was discipline. It's an age-old story, the young rebellious kid from the ghetto or whatever else, that finds boxing and gives himself this pathway forward. That for me, though, that was more just about acceptance, I think. But at the same time, it gave me something that stimulated me. I've always been in need of some kind of hyper stimulation, But it gave me some discipline as well. How it helped with videos? Probably nothing outside of the discipline, and also recognizing that it is possible to gain some kind of social respect off just doing what you want to do if you do it good.
I mean, but I think it did in some sense, because I remember watching a video of yours and it was you trying to get your blue belt.
Yeah, the jiu-jitsu blogs, yeah.
And it taken you, 5 years to do that?
Yeah, well, there's a story in martial arts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I
telling stories.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like you said it in such a humbling way, which, it took you 5 years to get your blue belt. And you kind of, you ripped on yourself a little bit in that too, which was, makes it more relatable for the person to watch. And I think in some sense, you could say that, well, it didn't really give you anything, but in some ways I feel like it was kind of preparing you for how you tell stories, with humility and relevance, because, I mean, when you think about telling a story, why are you telling the story? Do you want someone to hear this and be inspired by you? And if you are doing that, you need to think of your values and what you're putting out there. You also need to think about what the person is going to consume of you. And I think that for me, on the outside looking in, I think that being in that world has given you more of a path to follow with videography.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I don't think it is the it was the jiu-jitsu world necessarily. It was just the fact that I don't know. I love the story of growth and obstacle and overcoming obstacles. I don't think it matters what realm it's in. If it was in the fight world or a career or just like a different kind of story. I like the idea of being able to express insecurities, being able to express those hard problems that everybody deals with, but then also, being able to show the story of overcoming those obstacles, of overcoming those insecurities. And I think, that's the hero's journey, or just like somebody can take a little bit of relevant inspiration from that, or, this felt like a little accomplishment for me. So I'm going to try and tell it with a narrative and a storyline, because everybody can get like, oh, you see somebody else growing, you see somebody else overcoming things and they're part of their life, then you overcome it as well. I think the fact that it was just, in those stories there that I was telling you about my jiu-jitsu journey is that I didn't really have any other journeys to tell. That was the journey I knew. That was the journey that was there. I was living in my camper van in Melbourne City and in quite I dug myself into quite an interesting little lifestyle dilemma there, in a lot of senses. I won't bother elaborating on it right now. But so, yeah, that was just my story. Oh, I have an inspiration to try and dig myself out of here, so I might as well document it. I did it through the framework of jiu-jitsu, just because it was fun. It was like the only positive thing I was doing in my life at the time. It's like, yeah, make a story there. Yeah, because if we're going to tell the story of our lives, we can only tell the story of our lives, It's like, yeah, okay, what can be the catalyst? What can be the thing that I hinge off here?
Interesting, because you talk about catalyst, right? And I think through my conversations with you and you talk of the things that you've learned in your life, you always had a catalyst, and it started making me think about me and what the catalysts were in my life, like why I was here or why I was there. And I think like to be able to have that deep of an introspection is something that you need as a storyteller. You need to be able to go back and analyze and be like, oh, well, I did this because of that and I did this because of that. And I think that for me, that's actually really inspiring when it comes to you and your writing, because you're able to pretty much pinpoint, oh, this is exactly what I did.
Yeah, interesting you say that. I mean, like, it's fundamental to telling a story, isn't it? Everybody is living a story.
But I feel like not a lot of people know what the catalyst was. Like, they don't really pay much attention to how they got.
They could if they wanted to.
They could if they wanted to, but it's not something that's like at the forefront of their mind, where I feel like it's always at the forefront of your mind. Like, you're always thinking of, how did that happen? Like, why did that happen? Ah, shit, that's why that happened. Or like, maybe you won't have the realization for like 2 years or something like that, but you're always thinking about,
It's usually about 2 years too late. Yeah. That's probably about the timeline. It's like, 2 years too late is when I have the realization. Yeah.
Yeah, we've all been there. We've all been there.
So the mistakes are there, but hey, I'll make a good story to tell.
Exactly. And I think that's such a positive thing as well. Like, and that's what makes a great storyteller, because you're able to speak on something that may have been like a darker time, but you're able to kind of, add a bit of humor in there and add a bit of like you said, humility in there. And I think that's really healing for people to hear sometimes, because you're basically like just being real with people.
And, I think in all different ways, that's what art strives to do. I think that's what art is, in a sense. Art is telling a story, or art is, capturing, abstract ideas and putting it onto paper and being able to convey something from the deeper fabric of reality that, allows people to, to resonate with it, whether it is more kind of straightforward in a story, or whether it is showing, the beauty of symmetry and depth and contrast in artwork. But some people are more creative and do want to dig into the abstract world of ideas, and some people are more productive and more just kind of rational and are able to just get things done. I think that's the challenge that oftentimes is a great challenge for the artist. It's like being able to dwell and exist in this sometimes hyperactive realm of ideas coming at you, but then actually being able to capitalize on it and actually produce from it. But yeah, I'm going to ask you another question. I mean, like, you're not just good at photography. I think you're a very beautiful writer as well. It's something that's stuck out to me. You know, we've been on friends on Facebook for a number of years, but I've always noticed every time you've written something, there's like you might again say it's unconscious. That you kind of, I'm not sure I believe you. You just kind of, you're just like, oh no, sorry, I'm just good. I'm just really good at writing. But you're careful the way you choose your words and your description. And I've seen, when you're living on King Island back in the day, you're writing like little articles for King Island, traveling around the world and writing little, Facebook statuses and captions. But you've clearly learned how to write as well. I mean, like, how important has writing been in your life, or why do you write, and where does that extra attention to your writing come from?
I think writing, I became really into my writing just before I moved to England, which was at the start of 2018, or like maybe the end of 2017. So by 2017, I'd done 2 European summers. I'd gone to America with my girlfriends, and I'd been to some parts of Asia at that point. And I just felt that, I mean, like, I grew up like in an environment. I grew up in like the ghetto, essentially. I grew up in the ghetto. And so I feel like it was a realization for me, or it was a revelation when I turned, just before I moved to England, or I was making the moves to go there.
You were kind of dyslexic when you were younger as well, right?
Yeah, I was. Learning difficulties. I was dyslexic, and I'm pretty sure I had other learning difficulties that kind of went under the radar because I was quite a confident kid. So, you could never really see it. And yeah, so I think, like, I'd always read people's travel blogs because I'd always been really into travel ever since I was a young kid. And I'd always watched a lot of people that were on YouTube traveling places. And actually, there was a YouTube group called High on Life that beautifully scripted, massive inspiration to me at the time. Anyway, and I just felt like writing. I know it sounds weird, but I just felt like I wanted to have my own blog and I wanted to create something on my own. And I was never that smart with computers. I never really knew how to do it. And then I come across this ad by a company called Wix. And it was basically like build your own website. And what I had done with this website, I built my own blog. And like, it was called The Gypsy Life. And
could be a podcast name.
Yeah, The Gypsy Life. But it was spelled like LYF, like The Gypsy Life. LYF.
Nice.
And and then I would have like all my stories kind of formatted in a really cool way. I'd be like, like it would be like a section of my life where it was like growth, learning or whatever. And then you'd click it and then all these sub stories would come up and you'd click a story and then music would play and it would be like music that I picked or something. And when I was writing those stories, or the revelation that I had was I wanted to share my story, but I didn't have enough faith that I was good at writing. So I just started writing. It was like probably 11 a.m. I'd literally just been at the pub with my girlfriend, like talking about my travels and like how much fun I had. And I went home and I had a computer in my room and I just figured it out. I was like, I'm going to fucking do it. And I just started like figuring out how I could. And I just started writing and it was like coming out of me. Like it was almost like because I had chosen to write that the path was literally eliminated for me. And I felt like I became so curious with words and I listened more when people spoke to me and I paid more attention to just language, I suppose. And I taught myself how to become more of an articulate writer.
You're a regular reader as well?
I was a reader, more so when I was younger. So at this point, I didn't read much at this point in my life. And I actually wasn't reading. I know everyone says to become a brilliant reader, you need to read more. And I believe that. But I think with me, for me, where I was gaining more vocabulary is when I listened to people speak. And I was like listening to people in context, and I was watching people on YouTube in movies. Like I was paying more attention to people verbally speaking than I was reading it, because I felt like for me, that was more emotion. So like the words they picked and stuff like that.
I feel like a large sector of society now is becoming so much more articulate. I listen to some of the kids now, and they're just so eloquent, and they speak so well. And I'm pretty sure it's because they listen to the podcasts.
Yeah.
You can just hear it now. There's like this whole new podcast generation, and they're just so fucking smart.
Yeah.
You listen to them now, it's like you're like, you know, I have another assistant. He's my 14-year-old cousin, and like he speaks Spanish. Like, there's no way this kid's 14. It's just a little, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, just listen to the podcast. You know, you listen to something that wasn't available to the
we didn't
to the middle class, or the lower class, the lower middle class. You know, you had to go to university. You know, you had
but
to
also
actually,
YouTube, I think, was big for me.
Yeah, but even before that, you know, it's like now we're in this revolution where everybody can now literally be driving to work. You know, driving to their building job of the morning, but they're like listening to the smartest people in the world speak in their ear. You know, it's like, you know, you're being influenced now by, you have the ability to be influenced now by whoever you want to. I feel like so much of the world now is just like is becoming so smart because they're just able to literally listen to like university lectures just while they're driving now. And I feel like
we have so much more access to information.
Yeah, it's like a revolution in that sense. You know, people say the kids don't know how to do anything now; they're dumb in so many other areas. I don't know. Maybe they don't know how to fix an oven or whatever. I mean, I don't know how to fix an oven, but hey, you can have a conversation with them now. Kids know how to talk.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, it's cool. Like we all have that ability now. You know, being able to refine your language and being able to use language. It's like refines your thought. You know, it's cool. It's a cool world we live in now.
Yeah,
in a sense.
I feel like if you're someone that has like a keen interest in that, you know, like you will kind of have your own findings, or you'll do your own investigation, or you'll teach yourself. Like, you know, I like if I'm listening to someone having a conversation and they say a word I've never heard of, I'll go and look it up. Like, and I'll like see if I can use that again. Like,
for sure.
Like just like a deep curiosity with words. And I also think too, like there are obviously some people that I follow on like social media that are writers, and you know how they express themselves in their authenticity and how they are like being inspired by that as well. And you know, I think that was a large part of an inspiration, like my travel inspiration too, was because I was watching similar people express the whys that they were doing things, and like kind of breaking, I don't know, like breaking boundaries, or just like, what's the word? Like breaking, not breaking the rules, but they were just, you know, going out there and doing their own thing kind of thing. And I was always really inspired by people that did that were breaking the rules essentially. And so, yeah, I think.
Me too.
Yeah. Weird.
So for better or worse.
Yeah. I feel like though, like, I mean, like that, you have a story to tell if you do that. Do you know what I mean? Like you're breaking apart from a norm, or you're separating yourself from the norm. So you've got a story to tell, and you've got one lesson to learn, or lessons to learn. And then obviously you're able to share what you've learned through that. Because it's like, oh, it's scary, don't break that rule. And then you break the rule and you're like, actually that was pretty good.
Yeah. And that's we were throwing a bunch of ideas and words, you know, like trying to find a label for this podcast, you know, for just a label to put on the podcast, you know, what sounds cool, what flows kind of thing. But just throwing a bunch of words out, and it kind of came to this concept. One that I really still haven't taken the time to understand, but I said it in my head and I looked it up. I'm like, yep, that can work. But it's cool. That's the idea of the creativity paradox, and the idea of being able to create something like we're talking about before, being able to use your intuition and use, you know, break the rules and actually create something that is unique and that is innovative potentially, and that, you know, really is, you know, new and interesting. But the paradox being is that a lot of the time what is new and unique is kind of like a little bit too far out of reach for most people, and the structure, and it kind of doesn't make sense. You know, the fine line between actually creating something that's new and innovative, but also creating something that is relevant and makes sense. And so that paradox, although you're being creative, you get so creative that it's hard to, it doesn't really make sense. It's kind of hard to grab onto. It's like trying to find that line, you know. you get a little too creative. The next moment you're, I don't know, Picasso, and you're Vincent van Gogh, and you're chopping your ears off or something. It's like, yeah, you're Nikola Tesla, and
just go insane.
Yeah.
Like Charles Bukowski, like great poet.
Yeah, name so many of the most brilliant creative people before us. Yeah, you want to that order and chaos thing. You want to be tentatively putting that foot out into the realm of chaos, everything that is unknown, everything that is that needs to be sorted out, everything that world of rubbish and chaos, and trying to make sense of it. But you also want to keep one foot in order as well, and actually be structured, and actually be paying your bills, and actually be cleaning your room, and actually be keeping things together. Something that I need to do a lot better at. So yeah, it's been a big part of me trying to It's something that I'm forever trying to navigate, is, trying to keep myself in that orderly regime whilst I try to be a little bit different, whilst I try to pursue things that maybe are a little bit fringe or unique.
But I was going to say, it's you saying that entire thing. One thing I learned in my very first class of university was two types of thinking. Both go hand in hand to opposite things, but they're needed to one another. And it's called divergent thinking and convergent thinking. So divergent thinking is like just being that crazy chaotic. I'm going to
diverging from the path.
I'm going to say what I want to say. And this is exactly like, what I want. And you just write it on a wall. Like, Einstein, crazy Einstein that on a wall. And then the convergent thinking is you come back to that and you have like a filter. And you're like, okay, what will work, what won't work, how can things be, whatever. And then you kind of put like for me, I always see it as like creativity and an intellect. Do you know what, or not intellect, but like you kind of put this filter on it.
Rationality,
exactly. Rationality. Or like the order to the chaos. You come in and you basically say, this can work, this can't work, this can work. But you never ever stop yourself from divergent thinking. Never. You always need to throw that up on the wall. But you do always need to come back with like convergent thinking, and you're like, how
bring
can
it down
we do this?
Until you've got E equals MC squared. You
exactly.
Have the theory of relativity on the wall.
Exactly. Always like have a blackboard behind you, and like always have that there. Because like this crazy idea might kind of work with this crazy idea, but then this works with here. And then you've got all like these parts of a puzzle, because it's your brain trying to like figure it out. And then the convergent thinking is like the hero comes in and helps you with that, which is like order and chaos. The
problem is if you have too many notes on the board and you don't ever get to the convergent part where you're actually trying to make sense of it,
That's when you need to make the conscious effort of having convergent thinking.
Yeah, that's making your bed of the morning, keeping your room clean.
Yeah, it's like the tiny little
keeping your desk clean.
Tiny little orderly acts.
Something I really struggle with. Yeah. But yeah, you alluded to it now. I mean, these are things now. I'm 32 years old. What do you, 30 years old?
I'm 30.
Yeah, 30 years old. It's like, I feel like, especially in this day and age, right here is like I'm redefining it maybe a little bit here, but I consider this moment right now, in still my early 30s at 32, I consider this right now the prime of my youth. The point right now where I've developed a structure. I know where I'm going. I have enough of that convergent thinking now, that wisdom. But, I've still got some health and some time up my sleeve and some energy and some, so much room for growth. It's like, I think right now is the time to capitalize on that. And I'm really, really looking forward to this decade. It's been amazing so far. But yeah, so through all of this travel, 26 different countries,
maybe more than that.
Yeah, 30.
Don't say 26. 30, definitely more than that.
Sorry, yeah. 30 different countries.
No, not that. Don't. It's a lie. It's somewhere between 20.
All of this stuff, all of these different things you've experienced. You've dabbled in a bunch of different artistic ventures, from event design to what I call like photography, obviously, writing, a bunch of different things. You do tattooing? What do you call it? Stick and poke tattooing. A bunch of different things.
So
yeah, where have you where are you going now? How have you distilled all of this? Where have you put this in? And what is your journey now? You don't need to say your goals because we've been having this little conversation about the danger of
don't tell me
the danger of telling your goals before they're structured enough yet. But what are you doing now? Where's your head at now? What are you studying?
I'm studying fashion marketing, and I think I've come to that. Like I've always been somebody that has tried to have all my eggs in one basket, like all the things that I love and put it in one basket, and be able to do that because I am so curious, I guess. I think it's because I'm so curious and I'm so intrigued by so many different cool art things. I've dabbled in bits of them and I'm like, how can I bring it all together? Like, how can I do that? And while fashion marketing doesn't sound like that is the way to go, for me, I've found that one, it's teaching me discipline. It is the convergent thinking to my divergent thinking. Like it is teaching me discipline. It is teaching me to think more. It's teaching me to allocate time. It's giving me discipline. While at the same time, I am gaining something from it. I am gaining how to approach things in a business perspective. I am learning how to approach things from, a university perspective of design and art and creativity, which for me has been an absolute godsend because if you had spoken to me 5 years ago and said that I was going to go to university and I would be studying art subjects in it, I would have told you that's stupid because I always felt that art or creativity was something that was like innately like a talent and that you should never go to university to go and, study that because it's something that you naturally have. So why go do that? But now I'm humbled and now I realize that what I have learned from it is looking at the world in a larger perspective, looking at the world from like political issues, from social issues, looking at the world in so many different aspects. Because if you're going to create something, if you're going to be creating art, you need to be aware of where the world is sitting because you need to be able, and like also for like, if you want to, have the target approach, like I want to target this group of people, this subculture or this subculture, like it is important. And, that's still something that I am finding it difficult to not come to terms with, I guess, because I've always refused to see the world like that. I've always refused to see that part of the world. So now I'm having to force myself, I'm happily doing it, but I put myself in a position where I force myself to do it. And because I know that the gain that I'm going to get out of it is far greater. And it's actually, it's given me so much knowledge, and knowledge is power at the end of the day. And I think right now, while I am thinking of what will my future brand be or what will my future things be, I don't think that is important right now. What is important is learning how to navigate the world of it prior to doing it. Because I could think of an idea that I have now and then, find out, within a year from now it's not going to work because I haven't considered this, or this. And so, now I've put myself through uni.
Yeah.
And it's been a trip.
Yeah. I want to talk about an assignment that you recently put in. If you're comfortable.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, so you had an assignment in your fashion marketing study that you're doing currently that asks you to pick out an event. It asks you to attend an event and to essentially analyze that event, to investigate that event. It had a bunch of criteria that you had to mark down.
Where to use the Gibbs reflective.
The Gibbs reflective, yeah. And,
Gibbs reflective cycle, I think.
Yeah, and you had a few questions, a few choices of what questions you could investigate. And so you went to Panama Music Festival.
Yeah, a festival called Panama.
Yeah, a festival called Panama. I feel like a few people in the state would be aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for a kind of, how would you explain that? Kind of like a modern art hippie festival kind of thing?
I wouldn't say it was an arts festival. It was a multi-genre music festival. It was
in like a forest,
in a forest.
From...
It was like 2 days. I think it was 3 days, 2-night festival. It was, carefully curated. The founders of the event essentially wanted to create a music festival that did not prioritize money over art. And that was prevalent. That was there. Like, you could see that,
Yeah, but I want to speak about that. See, I read your first very, very sloppy draft of this assignment. It was just like, hey, come take a look at this. And I had a read of it. And as usual, it was your writing has such fluidity, and it was really nice to read, and it was very interesting. Always your choice of words is very nice. It's always a pleasant read. But I noticed you going in this direction, and it put it started making me feel a little fearsome, like a little fearful. I started getting a little scared. I'm like, wow. I mean, I'm not in university here. I watch YouTube politic videos, and I listen to podcasts on that speak about the universities, and I watch documentaries of people digging into the culture of academics and stuff in America and everything. I'm like, Lannah, are you sure that your teachers are going to like what you're investigating right here? Are you sure they're going to like what you're commenting on right here? And what it seemed to me, if I'm going to simplify it right down, I'll get you to elaborate in a minute. In a festival that was clearly meant to be authentic and compassionate, and it was talking about diversity, inclusivity, and connection, you kind of went in, you started commenting the way that you're writing. You were saying I'm kind of not feeling a real compassionate, diverse, and loving feel to this. It's like, although all of the pieces seem to be in place, it's not really the way that I was feeling it expressed. And it kind of felt like you were commenting on the kind of aggression that you felt that was a part of this group, that was a part of this ideology, the type of person that was there, and the type of overarching kind of energy wasn't, I guess, what you thought they were supposed to display, or what was the festival was saying that they were displaying.
Yeah.
You ended up refining what you wrote for the first draft, and you kind of took a step back and then kind of maybe took a little bit of the emotion out of what you were saying.
Yeah.
You were able to come right through this and investigate it, but you were able to come with a very lovely kind of bipartisan conclusion that was kind of like a very human conclusion, that wasn't a left or a right conclusion. It wasn't hating on the left or loving the left, or hating on the right or loving the right. It was just kind of talking about how we could use art, and how we could use festivals, and how we can use, communities and culture to add to a positive result for everyone. And what was it that you felt there, and what was the conclusion that you came to at the Panama Music Festival?
Well, when I was at the festival and I was, observing and absorbing, I felt confused, conflicted, angered, disappointed, I think, more so, that we had to come to such anger and contempt through certain social issues. And that, for me, I did not think, and I still don't think, that if we are to convey a message that we want to be inspirational, if we want to make movements, if we want to make change.
What was one of the social examples, social movement, or social, like you said, some of the perceptions or the ideas or the views that were, for example, just give me an example.
Feminism was one of them. And there were the Australian political system, and how it is the Australian political system and how it is failing the Indigenous, which it's something that we do face. I fully agree with it.
Yeah.
And I do not think that is not an issue. I do think that is an issue, but I think that how the message was conveyed, it was conveyed to me quite violently. And I personally, for me, I found it like difficult to consume. Like I found it difficult to digest because I felt like that I was being attacked. And even though I wasn't being attacked,
being
that's
attacked
how I felt.
For being what? Being attacked for what? Being white?
For being white, or like I just felt attacked for being on the opposite side of that, for, you know, having the privilege of where I am and like, you know, obviously having the privilege that we have as being white. And
yeah, assuming we do have.
Assuming that we do have, yeah, exactly. And so I think that, again, I do not disagree. I do, and I'm fully aware that there are so many issues that we have within our country that still haven't, like, you know, that don't benefit the Indigenous. And I fully, wholeheartedly, I'm there for it. But I personally, like, for example, my stepdad is Aboriginal, like, is Indigenous. And I had a conversation with him about this topic about 5 years ago. And I asked him, you know, how he felt about it. And he said that it is not within their culture to be violent in any way or form. They prioritize peace and they want peace. And, you know, he was talking, like, saying that the elders had passed that on for him. And my stepdad's like in his 60s. So, like, you know, he's definitely from the totally different generation than what, like, the Indigenous are now that are speaking on these topics.
So he didn't align with some of the aggression.
No, he didn't. No, and he is an activist. Like, he has gone to Parliament and he has fought for rights, but he's gone about it in a peaceful way because it is within their culture to do so. And I can't sit here and speak and say that I'm an expert on this because I am not, but I'm just going from what has been, like, shared with me. And so I think because I have that and I've had that conversation prior, I think when I observed this act speaking in such a way, I was just like, for me, I didn't absorb it. Like, you know, I didn't want to listen to it because for me, I was like, be fucking kind about it, you know? And I feel like that created some just angst with me but it also made me realize that it is really important how we convey a message. It is really important the context that we use and how are we going, like I actually said this in my assignment. I said that, how did I say it? Like coming like with compassion when you're speaking on a topic like this will create more of an advantageous mindset. So it will actually inspire people. But when you are inflicting fear, it creates a disadvantaged mindset and it also can create disadvantaged behaviors because it's coming from a place of fear. And so, you know, I think I realized very, very quickly that, how we convey is really important. And that if I were to ever, you know, create bodies of work, I would want to make sure that the message that I'm trying to put across is
one of love.
Is one of love and like compassion, because people people might not believe it. People are far more receptive to love, far more receptive to that. Like love is not an emotion unless you've obviously got some deep trauma around it. Like love is not an emotion that people tend to shy away from. Like it's something that they're more curious. They're more like, they feel seen. They want to embody it. They're more like, they want more of it. Whereas like if you're coming from a fear-based context, I suppose, if you're coming from that, like people, they're either listening because they're scared or they're listening because they're scared. They're acting because they're scared.
That's incredibly important. I said I read the final draft of your assignment, and it teared me up a little bit as I was reading it towards the end.
Right.
It was beautiful. It was brilliant, and such a pertinent and wide-reaching point right now. Not just in Panama Music Festival or your own personal conversation or family, but in the entire world and the culture war and everything that we're experiencing politically right now. I grew up in a left-wing family. All of my family from bottom to top, right from, my little brother and sister to my mom to my pop was a union man. They're all lefties from top to bottom. And I grew up in a hippie rock and roll culture. And, they were talking about peace and love and all of this, and they were anti-Iraq war, and they hated John Howard and George Bush and all that. It's just like they were trying to, they were channeling that old school, that 60s hippie vibe. But the left now doesn't seem to be coming from that. In the larger part of the left now doesn't seem to be coming from that position of love. It's, they could be saying all the right things. They could be saying that they're looking out for diversity and they're looking out for underprivileged classes and all of that. But they might be saying the right things, but the tone under their message is saying something else. It's not coming from a position of love. It's coming from hate and jealousy and fear. And, I feel like, that's where they're losing out right now, because it's so important that personally, I do have sympathies for the left. I do have sympathies for social systems and welfare systems. It's like, there's a place for it, to look after. I'm happy to pay tax if that tax is being spent properly. But I classify myself as a centrist, and I could sway left or right in any one period of time, depending on the culture surrounding it. But the left, me, like many other people in the world right now, are being driven away from the left because of the attitude that underlies their positions, like the anger and just the hateful position that they're portraying their message. And I think you put that brilliant in your fashion marketing assignment. It's about you can't put it out into the world. I thought it was beautiful. But
that's another great thing.
Hopefully you don't get failed for it. I'm still scared.
Do you know what? Like, if I get failed, I don't fucking care if I get failed for that, because personally, I think it was good. And I learned so much from that, so I don't care if I fail. I don't even, if I get marked low or whatever, I do not care. At the end of the day, I learned a lot from just by me writing that too, because I think, remember when you were like, oh, I don't know about that. That's kind of a bit. And I was like, nah, fuck it.
I was being a bitch. I'm like,
yeah, and I was like, nah, it's fine. Fuck it. This is, my teacher needs, would probably appreciate my point of view because it's different, but I still can back it up. And then, it sat with me for a couple of days and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I am. Yeah, I wanted, and also when I wrote that assignment too, is I wanted to embody being a writer as well. And I think I said it to you too. It was
very journalistic in nature,
Yeah, I wanted to embody that. And so for me, I was like, well, if I'm just ripping kind of on the left here, I'm not really, I'm being one of those people that are
you're being biased from the other side.
I'm being biased, yeah, exactly. And I'm I want to be non-biased. And I always like sitting in a non-biased, I always like sitting here and being non-biased. I like to see both sides. I like to be able to be well, this comes this way. Compassion, have compassion for both, and being and empathy, but also being no, that's wrong and that is wrong. This is how we can do it. Not saying that my opinion is right, and that it is, whatever, but that's how I like to be. And so I felt especially when you are a writer or when you do, creative work, you want to be able to put your personality and you want to be able to put who you are in that, because that's the whole point. That is the expression of it. You want to be able to show people parts of you that you may not verbally or physically be able to see. And that's what I wanted to do. And I did have to take a step back and be okay, how can I approach this better? And I think the way that the prompts for the assignment were written out that's what it was meant to do, because it was based on it was a reflective piece from an event that we went to. And, there was the description, there was the feelings, there was the evaluation, then there was the analysis, then there was the conclusion, and there was the action plan. Yeah. So I think when I got stuck on the analysis, which was the largest part of it for such a long time, and then I went to the conclusion and I went to the action plan. And then from there, I was able to write the analysis better, because this has softened me up a little bit. And I was it wasn't all that bad. And then I could throw it back into my analysis. Because
the process of writing often as well, isn't it? It's very non-linear in nature.
Yeah. When you get stuck. Start another piece here. Like,
yeah. Sometimes you write the conclusion before you've put the body in.
Yeah.
You go back to introduction. You change the whole introduction.
Exactly. Change your tone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see it a bit
Take a large part out. You know,
Yeah.
So it's refining your thoughts. That's what writing is. I've learned over the years. It's like you practice your writing. It's just like refining your thinking.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
There's a girl that I follow on Instagram and I love. Her name's Florence Gibbon. And I don't like, she's not like a mentor as in someone I want to be like her, but she's a writer and she's a really cool writer and she has a really cool insights on being a writer. And she has this like quite empowering way to bring out the writer in you. And it wasn't so long ago she had like a reel on YouTube and she said, not YouTube, on Instagram. And she said, you know, her as a writer, she's written 2 books, I think. And she said that just start writing, like just start doing it. And she said, I never, ever write the first few chapters first. Never. She's like, I'll write something else and then I will work my way around it. And I think
work your way into it. It's like, here's where I want to end up. How do I end up here?
Exactly. And like just start where you feel the story could be or just start at this thing that keeps going in your mind. Like, because sometimes I can feel like, okay, well, I want to write this, but I need to do this first.
Yeah, I don't know how to start there.
I want to get here. Yeah. It's like, I want to get here, but I have to do this part first. Yeah, like you kind of like switch.
Like, I know there's something here, but I've only got this little piece here. But if I just start with that, then I can like start filling in the gaps. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. You just got to get started.
Yeah, you just got to do it.
From banging, just got to get started.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done here today with this first attempt at a podcast.
For the green screen.
Hopefully we can stick something nice in this green screen.
Can you do the Einstein like a blackboard?
Blackboard. E equals MC. That'd be a little arrogant.
The more we speak, add a new one.
Yeah. No, that's it. Yeah, that's true coherent to represent my own thought about it, my own thinking pattern. But it was a lot of fun. And
now it's time for you to be a PT.
No.
I think I dressed.